Okay, good. Can people see my screen at this point?
Yep, looks perfect.
Good. Well, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for having me today. This talk's going to be on using WikiTree, making the most of your time. Also, before I get started, I want to thank Paula and Donna for making this a very smooth and friendly experience here over the last few months. So let's dig in. So I think this screen I've got. Give me just a second to get some Zoom stuff off my screens. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I think this is largely the bio that I gave you, so I won't spend too much time on this one. So I usually jump right into the presentation, but I thought I'd put some content in specific to the audience that I'm speaking to. So, one of the things I did the last 24 hours, I first went into my genealogy database in Family Tree Maker, and I said, well, let's just go use the feature for locations and go find where I have ancestors that have some either lived, born, or died in Virginia. I was kind of shocked, and these are actually direct ancestral surnames. So I've got a fairly large number of them. The ones that I bolded are the ones I care the most about. So if you see those and you've got some connections, feel free to email me later. The other thing I did, though, after I went through my database, because it doesn't go as deep as the information that's in WikiTree, I went to WikiTree and did the same thing. And I found all of the ones in WikiTree Orange, if you will, were ones I didn't actually have in my personal database, which has about 11,000 names in it now. So that was really very telling in terms of the types of things that WikiTree can get for you that you don't necessarily have to store in your personal databases. And then the same thing I did, I looked at the counties. Oops. I looked at the counties, and the two counties, Hardy and Ohio, I didn't have any references to those in my own personal database, but I did find some in WikiTree. So it does the broad message there is WikiTree can help you expand some of your genealogy beyond just what you've personally researched. So when I do talks, I usually try to at least have 3 key points I want to get across. So the intent today is I'd like to have you get a basic understanding of WikiTree. So this is as we were talking before in the pre-call, this is a no prerequisites presentation. WikiTree is kind of a large thing, so I'm going to focus on certain aspects of it, and I'm probably going to have a bias to things that I find most interesting. But I've definitely put some content in here for things that I don't really do it in WikiTree, but other people, it's areas they like to use in WikiTree that I don't. So give you a brief roadmap to getting started on this, and then also give you an overview of some of the most compelling features of WikiTree. And compelling will be obviously biased what I consider compelling. So I thought I'd first start off based on past presentations I've done is just explaining what the concept of a wiki is. So a wiki is a website that allows users to collaborate on content. You'll hear the term crowdsourcing. Wikis are one way to crowdsource content. Probably the best known wiki out there is Wikipedia. Wikis tend to have a high level of linking. So when you go to a page, it's constantly trying to link to other information on the site rather than just displaying a static set of text. There's all sorts of wikis out there. I chose some based on my personal interests, like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. There's an area called fandom. I think Star Trek and Mission Impossible are part of that. They are all basically built by volunteers. The other thing I would say about WikiTree, that we're going to be spending the majority of time on, WikiTree under the covers, it will look a little bit like Wikipedia because it uses the same underlying technology from MediaWiki or Wikimedia, but it's been heavily modified. So the two have a similar look and feel, but they definitely have evolved over time. So into different user interfaces. So when talking about WikiTree, I like to talk about what the mission is. And the mission is to grow an accurate single-family tree that connects all of us and is freely available. So this is straight off the WikiTree website. And each of those words in there kind of focus on a key aspect of WikiTree. One is that it's freely available. That's a huge commitment on the part of the founder of WikiTree. They're big into connecting things, and also compared to like what the things you might do in other places, like an Ancestry, where you might have, there might be 100,000 versions of Charlemagne out there, different personal trees. There's a single family tree. There's just one occurrence of Charlemagne, for example, on the website. So the concept of free is really important. It's somebody was mentioning earlier that it's sort of apologetically to me that that they occasionally use WikiTree, but they really haven't joined. And that's actually a great thing, because one of the ways to keep WikiTree free is if you're not a member, you will see ads. So that actually funds. That's the single source of revenue for WikiTree is the ads that appear on for non-members. One of the things also, given that the WikiTree is out on the internet, they do have, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but they do, in broad terms, modern family history is generally private, and there's some subtleties to that. It's not as binary as alive and living, so it gives you a little more control over some of the content. If for someone that's recently deceased, or someone that you might have information on, but that's deceased, that you don't necessarily want to be public with. And the other thing that they've recently added to WikiTree it's really become a serious effort in the last 2 or 3 years, is there's only a small group of developers on WikiTree, but there's a group of users that basically can put things on top of WikiTree, and you have a plugin in your browsers that will open up 10 or 15, 20, maybe more little different features and buttons that aren't necessarily part of the core product. So not only is WikiTree open about about your own family information, but they're also open to work with other developers and to enhance the WikiTree experience. So I met most of this group in Orange at the last Roots Tech. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I was not in this picture, but I showed up to Roots Tech to attend, and I started talking to Chris and some of the other people. I'll talk about who Chris is, but some of the other people at the conference, and I'm like, well, if you give me a shirt, will you let me be at your booth? They're like, yeah, come on down. So I grabbed a shirt, had dinner with the group 1 or 2 times, and had a wonderful experience. So the team here is, let's see, the guy in the middle is Chris Whitten. He is the he's basically the owner of WikiTree. Over here, if you're into Wiki, this is cannot pronounce her name. It's EOWYN. She's also known as the Forest Elf. Nancy lives here in Chicago area. Mags is is Canadian and runs some DNA projects up there, including remains for Canadian soldiers, identifying those. Yeah, and anyway, so I think Paul lives in Australia, if I recall. So anyway, it's a team of about 10 paid employees. So they do a lot with very little resources. So, and a little bit about WikiTree by the numbers. It was founded about 15 years ago now, so by Chris Whitten. And what I have done over the last couple of years is I've taken some snapshots of how big the website was. So about 4 years ago, there were 630 members. Now there's over 1 million. There were 21 million profiles out there. Now there's 35 million. 5.7 connected by DNA, and now that's over doubled now. So, so the site is still going through a fair amount of growth and getting new members. I would tell you that I think the 633 and the 950 and the 1 million, that's a little high in terms of people really using the product. Those are people that logged in at once and created a profile. To actually do any work, you have to sign what's called the honor code that I'll talk about in a moment also. And only 235 thousand have signed that. So, a little bit about that. So WikiTree is a free website to use, but you'd have to go over there's a little bit of a hurdle to cross to get registered. And part of that is they're trying to prevent, bots from just getting in and creating stray profiles. So the experience is that you go to a web screen and you put your basic information about yourself. And then there's actually live human beings behind the scenes that are what they're called rangers, that they will look for these messages. They will also, the ranger, I was a ranger for a couple of years. They have all these clever names. It's a very interesting social group. The rangers respond to new members. They also they watch what's coming in on an hourly basis for people that are, I'll just call them bad actors. And so if somebody's deleting stuff or creating nonsense, we have other parties we can escalate to if that starts happening. So you wait for that email and they'll say, oh, great, glad you want to join. And then you get sent to another screen and why you're interested. And this is really to protect from spam and these other bad actor type folks. The next thing you do is you sign what's called the honor code and you're on your way. And the honor code, I've got a slide that I actually spent a little more time on it than I had originally thought I would, because it actually covers a lot of not just the code, if you will, and the rules, but it really covers the philosophy of what WikiTree is all about. So there are 9 aspects to the honor code that, at least as long as I've been, I don't know that this has changed or might have got tweaked a little bit. But it just hits on the philosophies. And I can't remember if I highlighted the bold words. I think that's the way it is on the screen. So it's all about collaboration. So if you're going to put parts into a tree and you start editing something about a great grandparent, there's undoubtedly going to be someone else that's working on that person. So you're expected to collaborate with that person if you're contributing. We care about accuracy on WikiTree. And a lot of that gets down to then the sources in point number 8. There's also just a be nice tone all across the site. Mistakes are going to be inevitable. I've screwed things up, and people that are more knowledgeable than me have nicely let me know. And people have messed up stuff I put in that were newer and didn't understand exactly what was going on. And yeah, I've tried to be. I mean, might not have been as nice, but I tried to be as nice in letting them know how things work on WikiTree. So 3 and 4 are kind of parallel, sort of hooked together. Is just try to be courteous. And there are people, not many, but there's occasionally people that have to, that are escorted out of the WikiTree building, if you will. But it tends to be a rarity, and it tends to have to be. You have to be a repeat offender to get kicked off. So privacy is really important. I've got another screen on that. There's like six different tiers of how to protect the privacy of individuals. Copyrights. If you try hard, you probably will find some copyrighted stuff out here. Some people occasionally cut and paste from Find a Grave and things of that nature. So, or cut and paste a page from Wikipedia. That's strongly discouraged, and people will. We don't have people monitoring that on an hourly basis, but when you do find that, we encourage people to not do the word by word. Facts can't be copyrighted, but words can be. So we try hard not to violate copyrights, and then also give credit to where credit's due. So there's a couple little social things they do. I'll talk about that are kind of cool with that. So and then the last one is a mission to keep it free. So. And since we got such a large audience, if I was doing this in person, I would say, hey, feel free to ask questions. And if it gets off the track, I would try to get back on. But feel free to add questions into the chat. The plan today is that I think Paula and some other folks might be monitoring, and they'll try to call out the questions for the end. So I'll save some time for that. So yeah, so once you've entered stuff you're in, and you've got and you've signed up, and you've gone through the you've accepted the thank you, accepted the honor code. The next thing you'll do is you'll create a profile page. I'll show you an example of a profile page. in a moment. Start with editing your parents and grandparents. You can import through a GEDCOM. I'm not a big fan of that. It's people do it. I did it and I didn't think it. I think it works out better if you do individual entries. It's a little slower, but I just didn't like the way the GEDCOMs get imported because they get imported and you have to go through a process that when you do import the GEDCOMs, you need to.
Okay, we seem to have lost Marty. I'm sure he'll be back in just a moment. It's Donna, maybe you could check in with him if he doesn't show up soon. God, I love the internet as much as as wonderful as it is.
Yeah,
Are they
I
having
think it's all the
weather?
storms. Hi, Paul. It's Karen Kai.
Hey,
It's all the storms.
well,
I've wondered.
he's in Illinois, so I don't know if he's being affected by storms or not, or if it's just.
I think they got something coming or getting ready, but yeah,
Okay.
I think you're right. I think I did hear that.
yeah. So,
Okay.
but I love WikiTree. I use it. So, and there's the U.S. Black History Project that's on there where you have the plantations, who owned the plantations, who were the enslaved at those plantations, the Black cemetery, African American cemeteries. They're adding people to those all the time. I have a project out there from the city of Baltimore, our Laurel Cemetery Memorial Project, where we're listing all the people who were buried at this cemetery and doing their profiles. And you have to have source documentation and back up whoever you put on it. You just can't say, well, I was told this. No, you got to have some type of document, whether it's a census, marriage, something to back up this person actually existed. So it's really nice and it is free.
Excellent. Feel free to share links, and it looks like we've got Marty back, and I think y'all were right about the storms because it looks a little darker in his house now than it did a minute ago.
Yeah. So
Well,
there
actually, sure, we'll go with that. But actually, my PC just decided to go to sleep. So sorry
dear.
about that.
Oh.
Thanks for covering. So let me go back to.
Karen K was just telling us about an interesting African American project that I hope she'll add a link to the chat box in a moment. And I'll edit most of this out of the recording.
Good. Oh, good. Have you got me now?
Yep. And
Okay,
we're
good.
on the getting registered honor code. We passed that.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. You were on that slide, I believe. All right,
So
welcome back.
Okay, good. Thanks. Let me get stuff. Oh, I ruined my one special effect. So just pretend you didn't see that. There is to start using and once you put information in, they do give you a fair amount of guidance to climb what they call climbing the WikiTree. So I've included a link here and in the document that I forwarded yesterday. There is a help system also that is written in a very basic fashion, assuming that you're not an experienced user. And it does link lots of different concepts together. So at some point when you start putting your grandparents and other relatives in, depending on, I was mentioning in the pre-call, is that I'm largely kind of a American mutt. So I have a lot of people that come from Northern Europe through a lot of different channels, or a lot of different states and colonies. So I go back pretty far on a lot of different lines. So if you got that kind of, you're probably going to be you're going to connect to the global tree sooner than later. If you're from other areas of the world, there are communities there. But they're not as big a communities as in people from the U.S. So, and at some point when you make that connection, this is what I call my little happy dance. So when this moment happened for me, I'm like, oh, I get it, and this is kind of cool. And then all of a sudden, I've got all sorts of different ancestors that, and I'll qualify it with possible ancestors that could be mine that I can start researching, or at least I can know something about the story. I can know if I have a, do I have a connection to the to Scotland? I do. Do I have a connection to England? I do. Do I have a connection to Sweden? Probably not, in spite of what Ancestry wants to tell me about my DNA, or at least not in the last 800 years. So getting that connected to the global family tree, excuse me, is kind of the whole point of WikiTree. So we were talking earlier, and this is a little bit smallish. I hope people can see it. I will highlight parts of the screen, but this is an example of a profile screen, so that I had entered in. So the profile screens are sort of a combination of if you look at them, they're sort of database fields, if you will, on the screen that make it like a genealogy program, but it's also a wiki in that you can put text in and write a biography very nicely. So in this case, one of the things that WikiTree, so there's a lot of things going on here on the screen. It will identify the relationship to me. It'll indicate how many degrees difference, degrees away from me he is. So in this case of a grandparent, it doesn't, it's kind of obvious. But when you start getting cousins, and it'll go up and down the tree, and it will tell you 6 or 7 generations of connections away. So it's not just this one is not just on the ancestral side. Somebody was asking earlier also about knowing IDs. You can click and display the IDs here. So I put birth and parent information. They've got lists of brothers here. I've got he was only married once. She was married. My grandmother was actually married twice, and they had 4 children. So they're all listed here. You can all click on these, and you can go up and down. Think about if you ever get into Wikipedia and all of a sudden you're into some weird article that you're like, well, how did I get here? Or even it just maybe a worse example is your news feeds that you wonder, why did I bother to click on this? 10 clicks into something that I really wasn't that interested in. The nice thing with WikiTree is if you start clicking into things, you're most likely going to be more interested in them than you might be in other places. WikiTree is also big on sourcing. So if you notice, you'll see some things like in Wikipedia. You'll see this on the next screen that basically supports each of these facts. Now, to be honest, this is a pretty well-developed profile. You will run into profiles that are much more, I don't know what the word, naked. I don't know, that they're not as mature as this one. So, and I put a picture. I've got a picture of my great grandfather also, and he also was. I tried to find some interesting facts about him. He was involved in a case that got to the Oklahoma Supreme Court that still gets used as a precedent in other legal cases. So he lived. I tried to communicate that he lived a hard life, like a lot of people did back then. So the bottom of the screen has information. I put information about the family just so I'd have it in the body of the text. But I put sources in here too. So they encourage sources. They encourage you to link them. Sometimes I didn't bother to link them. So you can just put information here. Since this is a close relative, it's generally considered legitimate to say secondhand information from talking to different people. So I probably could have put dates on that. It's not legitimate to just say somebody told me this when you're talking about George Washington or something that we think were related to George Washington. That would be considered not reasonable. And then also I put the fact that I've got interviews and personal papers in my personal files down here. And there's a book about this family. So anyway, so this is there's longer bios out there, but this would be a typical biography. There's also, let me go back to the screen here. So there's also lots of little research candy out here, if you will. So you can do things like send a private message. If somebody came across this, they could send me a note. They could ask questions. There's a button to research, and it'll go after over 20 plus different websites to see if they've got anything more on Paul. So it's sort of think of it as a busy road, and you have to keep your eyes open. So look all around the screen when you're in there. There are areas I get to some screens, and like up here, there are so many. I don't think I've even gotten to all the menu options up here. And then there's sub-menu options here to find connections, to find, to display a timeline. So look around. It can be a little overwhelming at first, but don't think you have to eat everything at the buffet, if you will. So start slow. So I talked a little bit about privacy earlier. So the way privacy works is there's 6 levels of privacy. I'll talk about the end caps on this. Anyone born more than 150 years ago, you have no argument that there's something secret that about this person. So if they were born 150 years ago or died 100 years ago, they have to be a fully open profile that anyone can see. In 2008, we used to let living people, allow other people to add living non-members to the tree. You still can do that, but they have to be completely unlisted. You won't find them in the search engines. Only you will be able to look at them or someone you've designated. And a lot of that is, I don't know if people are familiar with the GDPR rules from Europe. A lot of that was came out of that. The GDPR rules basically only impacted living people. So it didn't impact any of the people that are non-living or are deceased. And then you basically can, the other thing you can do is you can indicate the tree portion of the profile and the biography portion of the profile. You can make one or the other of those hidden for someone that's deceased, but not deceased more than 100 years ago. And that's generally if you've got someone, if there's a story, I think the general tone is if there's a story that could hurt living people by being out there, it's legitimate to protect that person, or hide that, make that person private or more private. We've had some people that just want to treat WikiTree as their private database, and everyone they put in that's 150 years, it's born 150 years or earlier, they want all those to be private. That's really not in the spirit of the privacy. So to recap this, I kind of like this one because most of your database programs, and they let you mask people that are deceased or not deceased. There's a little more subtlety to the way in which and flexibility in the way which WikiTree handles privacy. There's another aspect of WikiTree is it does involve the use of DNA, but in a way that's a little more subtle. So when on my profile, I can put what DNA tests I've taken, and my cousins can also put that on there. And what WikiTree will do is it will roll up all those DNA connections. It will roll those up on the tree. So I've got the next screen. I'll show you an example where I've got 5 or 6 cousins that have taken DNA tests on a particular line of an ancestor. But this is a test taken. There is no, I'll go back to the bottom of the screen. There's no matching. It doesn't do like a lot of the other websites where you're not going to get, it's not going to tell you that you got a 50 centimorgan match or anything like that. So what this allows you to do, it allows you to confirm and reject suspected relatives. So if you've got someone to match, like that's a third cousin, and maybe they didn't match your fourth cousin, maybe they didn't match, they didn't have enough to match through the DNA programs. You can get an idea that they might be connected here, and then you collaborate with those people and see if you've got some cousins in common. And those really, there's a certain set of matches that it really can't, you won't find those in Ancestry and MyHeritage and Living DNA and 23andMe. So, and you can log all the various tests you've made. They will highlight connections, I think, back to 6 or 7 generations for autosomal, and then for Y, they go back pretty far. So I'm going to go back and cheat here a little bit. So on my Paul Porterfield, there's only one Porterfield, paternal Porterfield, apparently, that's entered his DNA information, and he's probably further back than 5 or 6 generations. I don't know. So, but the Y goes back, not to turn this into a DNA conversation, but the Y goes back much farther than the autosomal on your paternal lines. So a better example is my John Mallicoat, who I just wandered over to the Mallicoat Cemetery on my last vacation that we sort of stumbled across by mistake. So we got one Mallicoat that has a Y DNA match. A lot of other people here. There's more of them below there. He hasn't taken a Y. So if you took a Y, this Ed Mallet probably would show up there. And then other people that I'm probably related to. So this isn't, again, WikiTree is one of the core aspects of WikiTree is collaboration. So you can take this information, if this is a line you're interested in, and start knocking on people's doors and ask them what they know about your shared ancestor. We talked a little bit about collaboration. There is geographic collaboration, and I've highlighted in green the things that I'm involved in. And I there's one other one I forgot to talk about. But so geographic, there's England, Spain, Poland, Scotland, all sorts of, that's just a sampling. You also have population and era-based groups. So there's medieval group, there's New Netherlands that focus on the New Netherlands. I do have one Huguenot, a Bondurant, I think that's the right pronunciation. And he's from Virginia. So give me a buzz if we're related. And then pre-1500, talk about that a little bit more later. And some people like the Magna Cartas and the Mayflowers, there's a certain group of people, I guess I've sort of wandered into that, because you want to know how many Magna Carta connections you have and how many Mayflower. I have two, they're brother, father and son, maybe a third one, I can't remember now. Can't remember if I have any Quakers or not, should know that. And there's also people, mentors and greeters. So if you're struggling with like, if it just becomes a little bit too much because there's so much going on, there are mentors. You can ask mentors that are really, they're kinder, gentler people that I can be sometimes. So they're really good to help people get jump started on ask them what the next, you can ask these people the next step. And these are volunteers. Greeters are people that I talked about before that they welcome the new people, and they also check for people that are they focus on the new people. There's help page development that people have worked on. We've had a lot of volunteers just do training videos that they'll different quality videos, and we've got them linked onto many of them are out on the YouTube channel for WikiTree. There is a big effort to keep the tree clean, because that is one of the banes of these collaborative websites. You do have people that don't document and source as well as others. So there's a data doctors project that there's a guy in Slovenia, I think, that wrote a data, and that he worked with the WikiTree team, and he's got access to the database, and he's run all sorts of, he's got like 50, 60, I don't know, maybe might be 100 now, different checks he'll do, consistency checks, way more than your normal set of checks that look for bad information. They'll compare, they'll scan the information to compare. Does it agree with find a grave? Does it agree with what's in Wikipedia via using something called Wikidata? There's a product improvement group of people that just like to improve profiles that I'm involved with. There's people that like to connect, and you go find sections of the tree that aren't connected, and you try to find a common person on the tree to connect to. And arborists are people, this is a clever term, I guess. They're people that go and clip parts of the tree off, or they basically merge them together. So, because duplicates are something that happens on these collaborative sites. So I'll talk about, let's see, so on the surname projects, so I've created a couple surname projects. One I've done for the Porterfield surname, that's my maternal grandmother. There's a book about them. They're pretty well tracked back to as early as you can get with records in Scotland. They own some land, so they show up really, if you're familiar with Scotland, if you're a landowner, like a notch below the nobility, you tended to be pretty well documented in older records. So he was, so that line I seem to be related to. And one of the things I'm doing, somebody's talking about the African American Project. So one of the things I do with Porterfields, I just go, when I have free time, I just go hunt up new Porterfields. In the Chicago area, there's a guy, he's retired now, called Ray Porterfield. He's African American. So I've tracked back his line, and there's another Porterfield line, I think, that's more based in South Carolina. And I've gotten to the typical problem you run into with, they both had, they were both slaves, slave families. So I've run into issues of running out of the records. I can't tell you I've actually dug deep into those, but that's my little foray into, that's about as much as I've done on the African-American front on WikiTree. So, but it would be, and I don't have those lines connected to the big tree, but it would be cool to do that. So maybe someday. So this surname project goes on and on. I've got groups. I've grouped my different porter fields. There's one main group. I've got probably 20 different groups, and I think one or two of them I've been able to merge into the base group over time. But this is a long, you're playing a long game trying to connect all the porter fields together for a surname that's sort of in that mid-tier surname, that there's a lot of them, but it's not a Smith and a Jones, and it's not like my birth name was Linover. There's only a few hundred Linovers. So, that one doesn't have it presents different challenges. There is a concept of, when you get to the social side of WikiTree, I kind of implied that it's just a fun group of people. You get assigned badges. You can give people badges. And if you grow groups, if you join a group like a cemeterist, the cemetery group, which I joined from my local hometown, you get badges for that. You get badges for source-a-thons. So I'd like to say that I'm not into that, but apparently I am, because I actually showed this screen. The pre-1500 certified I talked about, that one is a little bit hard to get. The challenge you have with pre-15 certified is everybody wants to come in and put their connection to Charlemagne. And about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, they blocked 1500. They made you basically have to get certified and run through. You have somebody on the board for the pre-1500s, gives you some work gives you an area to work on, or if you have an area you work on, you volunteer for it. You do the research, you present it to that group. I sort of got grandfathered into this group, but from the people who tell me, it's kind of hard to get in, because there's people I consider more knowledgeable than me that don't seem to be able to get certified. But the yin and the yang of this is trying to deal with all the clutter of pre-1500, because you're basically you're into Europe and other areas. You're not really in the U.S. at that point, and so that's just one badge I've got. And then if you join things like connect-a-thons, I'll talk about in a second. You get tested, you get DNA tested, you can get all sorts of badges on your profile, and things like that. 139, it's probably 150 now, but you get one for participating on different projects. So making the tree more accurate. I talked a little bit about the database, the data doctors. I kind of covered some of this already. So the data doctors is a group you join, and there are tools that you can run, like I run on a weekly basis, to go look at the health of my part of the tree. So I can go look at all my ancestors, my blood relatives, and one away from my blood relatives, and I can at least work on cleansing that part of the tree. They'll compare to Find a Grave. They'll compare to, Find a Grave has a different date, or they've got a birth date, and it's not on the profile. It'll detect stuff like that. Again, it's Find a Grave, so think of it as a clue, not as a blindly accepting stuff in Find a Grave. But it's if you use it properly, the overall result will be to have a more accurate global tree. The merging project, that was the arborist. There's people that focus on that. I generally find, compared to when I'm in other global in family search, there seem to be fewer duplicates over time. But that's just my experience. And we talked about that. Yeah, there's a lighter test for pre-1700, and then the GEDCOM. The GEDCOM import used to, and that was the source of a lot of challenges. People would upload these 10,000 member GEDCOMs, and we just get a lot of duplicates out there. That was a great thing in year 1, year 2, year 3, but now that it's a more mature site, that is that's discouraged. So, or that's not allowed. The honor code, back to it, in terms of making it accurate. There are people that will give you a hard time if you join and you just start putting if you just log everything and say it's my family records, someone might politely suggest you put some documentation in. And when I kind of encounter that, and if it's an area I'm interested in, I'll often just document the profile. Go to Family Search, go to Ancestry, go to Find Grave, go to your basic culprits, put some decent sources in, and say, hey, by the way, we share this cousin, blah blah blah, here's a way you might want to do better. I tend not to really be confrontational about that. So, and more on the social side, there are these source-a-thons we do once or twice a year, where let's see, maybe hundreds of people get on from Friday morning to Monday morning, and they form teams. They have clever names. I'm on Dusty Musties, which is a pre-1500 focused team. There's Magnolia team. Yeah, all sorts of clever names for these teams. There's 20 or 30 teams. So you'll just decide to spend a weekend sourcing profiles that are poorly sourced, and there's a way to tag a profile as unsourced so you can easily find them. You've got cleanathons to clean up the errors that I mentioned earlier. You've got connectathons, and these are just not to discourage people from doing this 365 days a year, but it's just a fun team effort to get a bunch of people focused, and then they count. They give out T-shirts and the like every 3 hours. A lot of social activity of that. There is a group called WikiTree Ambassadors. I'm actually an ambassador. I'm going to be talking. I should have slided for this. So I'm going to be talking in a month or two at WikiTree Days. I'll be recorded to talk about the ambassador program. These people just do outreach, so they might be on social media. They might just do presentations to groups. So I kind of got into that a while back. People can be thanked, and you can thank other people. You get pictures of the week that the team will find a picture and you can comment on it. You've got profiles of the week that are often, so for example, you'll often find recently deceased people. So Jimmy Buffett was on there. So you can click on Jimmy Buffett and see if you're related to Jimmy. I have connections to him, but not direct ancestors. Darn. Member of the week is for some notable volunteer. You can talk about the badges before. And then the other thing I was mentioning, there's this what's called G2G, which is genealogist to genealogist, and it's a forum to ask questions largely about WikiTree, but also about it's fair game to ask about general genealogy topics. And I spend a lot of time on there responding to things. That's also when they're doing announcements like, oh, source event's going to start up. Please sign up and we'll get you registered for a team. And then there's a Discord server. I'm not a big Discord person. I've tried using it a few times. I don't get it, but there's a whole lot of people do. So that would be an example of something that, go nuts. But don't ask me because I haven't figured out the model for Discord yet. But it is something popular for, I think, younger people. Who knows? And we were talking about this on the pre-call. So each year, the last few years, they've had different types of challenges. So in 2021, what they did is, WikiTree is they brought in different groups they brought in a number of people that would be considered genealogy rock stars, I guess. So they brought in A.J. Jacobs, who wrote the book. I got the name of it. C.C. Moore, who we were talking about beforehand. Henry Louis Gates, everybody should know for PBS. Thomas McAtee, I believe, has a national reputation. He's based here in Chicago. He's got a very distinct, if you see him, you've got a very distinctive look. Judy Russell, anyway, you can read the list. I don't need to go through all these. Michael Acapa is from Indiana. And so anyway, that was 2021. 2022, they had the challenge. They focused from genealogists to the various worlds. So they actually got some of these people to participate, I believe, or at least to agree to get a profile out there. I don't know if they were as involved as these were. Each of these, they had a reveal, sort of like like sort of a reality show. They had a reveal of what they found about these people. I sat and listened on CC Moore's, and it was fascinating because I'm curious if the same experience, but she's like, I spend so much time doing my work stuff. I just haven't done much on my tree. So I actually found a lot of information. The group of people that did this found out a lot of information she didn't know about. So she was extremely appreciative. So I sat on that call, just didn't sit on the rest of them. So they switched to famous people. And did their trees. And then this year, what they focused on, and actually I should have mentioned this to Paul and Donna earlier, but they focused on community connections. So if you look at the groups, there's a few more they've done. I think they've got a couple extra slots for the year. So what they did for each of these groups, each of these genealogy societies, is that a fair? Yeah. Genealogy historical societies. They asked each of these groups to give them 10 ancestors. I think that's what I heard at the beginning of the year. 10 ancestors, and then this group of people that likes doing these challenges for other people would research those 10 people, and then I believe they have some sort of meeting afterwards. I haven't been involved in this one as much, but somebody like GRIVA would be a great would be a really interesting group to sign up for this. So if you there's places you can find it on G2G. If anybody's interested on the GRIVA team to make that happen, let me know, and I can either reach out or find the right link to see if you're to see how to get into that. So I've sort of given a little bit away about what my interests are, but I thought I'd kind of recap. WikiTree, there's so many things you can do in WikiTree, so I thought I'd recap what I find most interesting. And this may not be, I don't believe anybody would have the same exact list. So I enjoy finding more ancestors. There are queries you could run to find out all your ancestors. And to keep in mind, I've got some that go back to, in theory, back to really, really far, like with the Welsh profiles and things like that. I'm not convinced I really have ancestors that go back to 2,000 years ago. But they do have the ability to tag at each generation whether something's well proven or not well proven. I enjoy writing biographies. So you saw one on my great grandfather. I try to do those. Writing biographies takes time. So, but I'm really focused on leaving stories, not just facts. I enjoy surname studies. I spend a lot of time on Linover is my birth name. Porterfield is one that I'm fascinated with. Acks is my adopted name, and Maliko's my maternal great grandmother. Acks I've actually got all the way back to mid 1500s in Germany, so I don't know if I'm getting further back on that, but we always find more cousins. Woo woo. So I spend time on the data doctoring. I haven't done much in the last month or so, but it tends to be a weekly thing I do time on or spend time on. I do enjoy collaborating with others. And you will find the more people you connect with, you will have some great experiences. So I connected with somebody on my step side, a Delaney that was actually 5 generations back, found me on WikiTree. And as it turns out, he had in his possession a picture of my stepbrother, his grandmother. So, we're trading emails back and forth, and I shared some stuff with him from my research that solved a brick wall for him. He goes, and finally he just goes, well, what's your address? I want to send you something. So he sent me the picture. So gave it to my brother. He's not into genealogy as much as I did, but he was generally appreciative. So not gaga like a genealogist might be. So local history too. I'm involved with the Downers Grove Historical Society. We just rolled out a new website with lots more new historical information on it that I spend a lot of time creating. And I use WikiTree for building trees on town founders and early residents of the town. So I find that to be useful. Matter of fact, I was on there. Pierce Downers, the founder of the town, and you can see on WikiTree who made the changes. So I see someone making changes, and I think a little bit of research, and she might have posted something. Actually, it was one of her Pierce Downers descendants, which was kind of cool because we're always looking for people like that to come to town and talk and share their experiences. I also act as a team captain for some of these the various thons we do, if you will. And I do some connecting. That sort of gets to be a little addictive. Because if you're going up and down the tree, at some point it's interesting collecting numbers, but if they're not cousins and you're going back up another cousin's tree, I'm not sure that's something that's really that interesting. But I am up to 2,000 now, so I guess I have been spending time on that. So I would tell you. So I did have this called WikiTree Challenges, and I forgot there's actually something called WikiTree Challenges. But there is an aspect to WikiTree that, how would I politely say this? I don't think it's for everybody. So, and that might be a shocking thing to say, but I'll give you an example. For example, it's not always easy to collaborate. And so the example I would give is, I'm in my 60s, if you haven't figured that out. So report cards back in the night and back when I was a kid, they had a little box on them, maybe they still do, that said, plays well with others. Well, if you didn't get that checkbox, you're probably not a great candidate for being a WikiTree. Because there is a requirement. You don't have to be on this every day. You don't have to, but you have to. You're part of a community. You're not just using a genealogy program, so you don't have to be actively engaged. But if somebody says, "Hey, but like you might get a request for, somebody accidentally created a profile for your great grandfather." So now there's two of them. He figured it out, or he or she figured it out. So they're going to send a request to merge, and both people have to agree to merge. It's a little harder. There's more of an approval process than there's on Family Search. Family Search, you can just go crazy merging. There's no checking on both sides of who created it. So, and you're expected to at least respond within 30 days, just stuff like that. Writing biographies, it can be a little bit hard. I just showed you biography. I didn't want to scare you in the first hour, but there is a little bit of a wiki markup language to write really fancy biographies. So again, take it in small chunks. Don't worry about having fancy biographies. Don't worry about having inline citations on the first profile that you write. I'm a computer science guy, and I occasionally edit Wikipedia, not much. So I'm kind of familiar with the markup language, but there's other people that are less technical that they used to send me notes saying, "Oh, well, this is programming." And I think it was initially dismissive, but it is technically complex to some people. So, and if you do decide you want to have fancier biographies that look attractive, well, then just go look at other people's biographies and sort of figure out how they did the markup language and how they formatted things. So that's one suggestion I would make. One of the knocks on things like WikiTree, and I would lump Family Search into that, is that there's a lot of old profiles and there's a lot of garbage out there. And if you go into WikiTree and you dig deep enough, you will find a profile that just says somebody imported this GEDCOM 10 years ago. They're still out there. There's a group of people trying to get those all, at least get some sources on things, but there's 34 million profiles from there. So, and then the other challenge I have with WikiTree is there are just so darn many things doing genealogy. So not only can WikiTree be daunting, but it can be one of your 25 or 30 different tools you're doing or projects you're doing at any point in time if you're into genealogy. So I would just go back to my message of try to consume things in a bite-sized fashion. So I hope excuse me today that you've got a little bit of a basic understanding of WikiTree. There's a lot to it. I talk a little fast, I'm told. So I hope maybe you can watch the rerun in slow speed or something. But and I hope you got at least a basic understanding of how to get started. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer some basic questions. If we have some common relatives, I'd be even more excited to chat. Given all the Virginia connections I didn't realize I actually had. And again, WikiTree, if you haven't gathered, I'm kind of a fan. I'm not, they don't pay me to do this, but I'm just fascinated by this site. I'm also fascinated by a lot of other parts of genealogy, but just consider it as one tool in your toolkit. So, and the final thing I was going to mention is there's these WikiTree days, so you can probably just Google WikiTree Day, and this is one thing I meant to check before I got on. But yeah, they're coming up the next month or two. I'll be live doing a presentation similar to this, and I will also be I'll be on a recording of people explaining the ambassador program. That's more for people who've been using WikiTree for a while, but explains different ways you can do outreach and explain the virtues of WikiTree. So at that point, I will stop, and I'm going to turn it over to, I don't know if it's Paula or Donna, for any questions that you guys may have.
There are a few. The first one, and you kind of covered this in the last couple of minutes, but and another member also covered it in the chat, but I will ask if you want to add anything, is what is the difference between the family search tree and WikiTree?
Yeah, so family search, a couple of things I would say about family search. Number one, it's way, I will sort of tell you why when I use family search and what I think it's better doing. It has more people. I do find when I wander into areas of my tree that I haven't been involved with, I do stumble across a lot more duplicates, but you get that in WikiTree. So you merge those away. There's a little more dubious connections in WikiTree in family search, I think. Because I don't think there's as many data doctoring and policing of that as there could be. But it's massive. I think it's like 10 times more people. Again, they may not all be unique. The other really nice thing about family search is you can easily connect sources. There are some ways to do that in WikiTree also, but it's a single step process in family search. So I do spend a lot of time with family search, since it's a place for free records compared to Ancestry or MyHeritage. You will find in WikiTree that family search is used heavily for profiles in the last from people born in the last, particularly in the U.S., born in the last 200 years. So because they've got a phenomenal set of records. I use them heavily for they had the German records for my Acks line too. So if you go into my Acks ancestors, you'll find a lot of sourcing from family search there. So so I'm a big family search fan. So, but I would say family search does have an ability to write a biography, but it's sort of just a flat text field, and it's not as, from a focus point of view, it's not as front and center as it is in WikiTree. There's also this whole all the social things that I mentioned. There's social aspect of family search, but they're not like this. They're more like visiting your local family search center. So it's a little more of a social society too than I think family search is. But it's a great place for sources. You look at all my profiles, you're gonna have a lot of family search profiles on these or sources.
Midge says, we're related through the Bondurant line, apparently. I've never been on WikiTree. I can't wait to see what you have on there about that line.
Okay,
so
cool.
You might just have got yourself a cousin tonight.
Yeah. There was no ulterior motive to putting that slide up there.
It's always, you never know who's in the audience.
I was shocked today when I put together the final list of names and counties, and then we talked about, I didn't even get to the independent cities because I stumbled across them and like, I can't deal with the independent cities here. But there were some sources from independent cities too.
Virginia does like to complicate things sometimes. Okay, if WikiTree does not store raw DNA data or do matching, how are they matching you to possible cousins?
They're simply going through a couple of things. One, the term possible is a really good, that's dead on. So you're not proving anything, particularly once you go back 4 or 5 generations. But it's basically you're connecting the fact that 2 people took a test and they simply happen to have the same ancestor in WikiTree.
Okay, so it's somebody you might want to go look for in your match list.
Yeah, so on the Linover line, which I'm fascinated with. They didn't show that one. I think there's a couple people I've reached out to them, and even on WikiTree, not everybody responds, or they don't respond immediately. But yeah, so but it's basically to find possible ancestors, possible cousins through the tree, not through the centimorgans, if you will.
Got it. Should WikiTree follow a certain source format? And are there examples where you can see how to format your citations?
Gosh, I'll give you the official answer. I'll give you my personal opinion. There are pages that talk about sourcing. I think there's some bad guidance given. Like if you go to the editing page over the right, they have a really bad example. But again, I'm kind of let's see. Here, I'll use an example here. Can you see this?
Evidence
I'm
explained.
This is the Bible for me. Okay, I get it that everybody's not that not everybody's going to try to source to that level, but there's some guidance, and I think it could be stronger, in my personal opinion. But as much as I would go back to Wikipedia also, which I think is one of the more significantly more mature in some ways of a wiki, and they don't have there's not a lot of consistency on their sourcing either. So it's a challenge. And there's another new book by one of the other guys. So this isn't the only way to do this. So there's other people that have their methods, and
I think the other book you're thinking of is Tom Jones, Mastering Genealogical Documentation.
Yeah, and he's got a national reputation also. So yeah. I've got that on the shelf. I've kind of skimmed it a couple of times. I haven't committed to that. So and if you go into just general sourcing, there's a site. What do I've got on my desktop? What's it called? No, maybe not anymore. But there's like over 50 different types of citation formats. Now they tend to be for.
I think that's the question: is that there's so many different formats. Is there one that's used or recommended?
You will get to if you drill down into the sourcing help, you will find somewhere that they say evidence is explained. Evidence explained is sort of the ultimate goal, but some of the other guidance kind of veers off that. So, the other thing I would have to back off a little bit is that this is a collaborative site. You've got people that have different levels of experience. So some people just copy links on there. So if I see a link to like archive.org, I may just go in and give that at least a lightweight sourcing. A lot of people just put the link and move on. And so you can quickly click on that, figure out who the author was, what the name of it is, and put a date and put the published date and publisher if you want. At least to get a little better documentation to say who that is. So
makes sense. Okay, she answered her own question about Hispanic communities. So I'll go to the next question. How do you find the information for the biographies? Does it just pull in stuff, or do you write it, or both? It's kind of a combination. And where do you get the information?
There's nothing special about WikiTree on that front. WikiTree is just sort of a vessel you put the information into. Okay. So, so I would say I would use just general research for the ones that I've created. Depending on how distant they are, they may or may not be in my personal genealogy database. So, for example, once I used to have all the notables for Scotland that I'm related to, but once I got to people that were at least nobility, I actually gutted them all out of my personal database. So, Charlemagne's been out for a couple of years. And so I rely on things like WikiTree and Family Search to do the deep stuff. And then my personal, WikiTree is not my primary place for all my personal information. My Family Tree Maker is, and you could be using Roots. What's the other one? Anyway, you use some of the commercial one. They all work. They all kind of do the same thing. That's where I have a lot of information. So I will copy that. I will use that for sourcing a new profile sometimes. But if I'm at other, it just depends on the area. Like in Scotland, I tend to do a lot of 1300 to 1600 stuff, and they're just a set of sources, I know what they are. So
Okay. Next question, and I'm not sure if there's time for this, but maybe you could point to further information. I just found my grandmother's profile and a lot of information is missing. Will you show us how to enter missing information in a profile? I'll leave it up to you if you want to try to tackle that, or if you just want to point us to some frequently asked questions. But you did
Well, yeah,
mention
we were
having it
talking-
up, so.
yeah, let me
You had yeah, it's just one of your tabs, I think.
yeah, so oh yeah, somebody yeah, on the pre-call we were asking about Samuel Deadman. So from Virginia. So yeah, so let's say we wanted to edit some information. There's an edit
I
button
will
here.
point out you do have to be a member before you can edit things, though, right? You do have to register
You do.
first. Okay.
Yeah,
And then once you're
there's no-
registered, then you have that
yeah,
edit
no
button.
money, you know, sign up for the honor code. So the edit, you end up just it's a web form now. This is the part I told you I wasn't going to show you because you could get a little scared, but like if you want to get a reference, if you want to get a inline citation, you say ref name, blah, 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 and then you've got them at the bottom. But on the other hand, you could just say, you could say something like, I'm not really going to accept that, are still unknown. And I can click and save on that. Trying to think if I could find some innocuous thing to say, but some little tweak, like a comma that's missing or something. But the one thing, so there's a whole slew of things here so I'm going to leave and not accept that. So we can go and look to, this is an actually interesting one because there's been a lot of discussion on this guy. People wondering why you did certain things. It was all civil, but I got to meet Joe Holloway. He's a nice guy, really knowledgeable people. The other thing, you meet some really, I was working with someone and he's like got all these sources for Scotland. I'm like, where the heck did you find those? And so I start chatting with him. He's got a library of 10,000 books.
Wow.
And there's people that are members of parliament on here or former members of parliament doing their deep UK based stuff. It's not that you don't run into them all the time, but you do run into a interesting set of characters and people that you can ask questions to. So so this profile's had some active activity on it. Somebody added some children back in August. I'm probably suspicious of that, so I might go look at that because I spent a lot of time trying to clean my mess up. There's some chat on the comment screen, so you can put comments on to talk to people if you're uncomfortable with the change you might make. So there are people that instead of editing, we'll go back to you can add a comment at the bottom. Oh yeah, so this is a very deep set of comments compared to other profiles. So we're just having a chat here. I'm usually someone I just make the change because you always roll them back. But if I'm not certain and I'm like, I don't know, I really need to collaborate with somebody, this is a nice place to collaborate with other researchers. And
it's yet another place we can plant some cousin bait.
Yeah, it is a place for, it absolutely is.
Okay.
Yeah, and somebody else put the will out here. Yeah, this is a really great example of collaboration. It's sort of unintentionally, but I think that's what I had up. So
and obviously there's going to be more information on more further back ancestors than like grandparents, because there's not as many descendants or people interested in the grandparents yet, and less information to share.
Like on this one for descendants, you can go down 5 generations of descendants. I mean, you've seen an example like this.
Oh yeah,
it's all linked. Yeah, so there's a lot of researchers here probably. So trying to think if this is my line or don't even know where my line is. There's so far deep.
On that front, another question is, my ancestors don't display the relationship and degree of relationship. How do I turn that on?
This guy here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That is the plugin that I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that and this one I believe come in It's only available. Let's see. It's available on Chrome. I know. I don't on Windows, and they just made it available, I believe, on. And I'm an iPhone guy, on iPhone for what's the native iPhone? I use Chrome on iPhone, but I think they put it on Safari on the iPhone.
Okay.
And
So
there's
yeah, I think
dozens of yeah. So
I just put a link to WikiTree has a page that says WikiTree browser extension, so that might lead you in the right direction. So I just put a link to that in the chat box.
yeah,
Okay,
well, I'll go to
another
the settings.
question which you might be able to point us to is WikiTree information available in English only, or is there a way for someone to translate it into other languages?
I believe the user interface is English only right now.
Okay.
There are some profiles. If you go, gosh, I'm trying to think. Most of
when
my
I
research.
Googled earlier, I found a page that mentioned languages used in profiles, but that was as far as I got before I said, let me just see if he knows.
What you will tend to find is I've got some of them somewhere. I don't know if I could find them off the top of my head, but I'll just give an example. Is you'll sometimes find biography. You'll see biography, and then you'll see whatever language it ends in an I instead of a Y. So people sometimes have that, and then you'll have excuse me, essentially the same information in a different language. And then sometimes particularly the folks that are in another language, they'll be more, if they're the more committed researcher on that profile, you might have more in French or Spanish or some other language than you do for on the profile. So that's all considered legitimate. There's nothing that says that the page has to be in English.
Okay. Let's see. So got the languages. Can we access? Okay, this is. Can we access anything online now from the 2021 or 2022 Wiki challenges? I answered. You can, if you go to YouTube and search for WikiTree Challenge, you can see the reveals. And Marty's pointing us to. Are there articles or as well? Is that what you're looking for?
I'm just gonna Google.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on these earlier today, so there's a page for them. You can wander through the. It's a different type of challenge. Hold on. Yeah, so we do have those major challenges, and then there's all sorts of other challenges. There is I know the U.S. Black Heritage, the group, they're pretty active, and I see them asking for volunteers sometimes. And the other thing you can do with G2G, this forum, you can have certain things you follow. So if you're interested in Black history or interested in cemeterists, they only let you have 20 of these, and they also, which seems like, because it also includes surnames, so you have to be a bit selective. And then what happens in my case is I get a news feed every day, and I generally have 10 to 20, 25 topics from where someone's entered something on an area that I might be interested in. And that is based on tagging my profile as interested in these things.
Oh, I think I led to the wrong one. Oh well.
So I'll go to me. So I'll edit my profile. Oh, here we go. So I'm interested in announcements, arborists, bugs, data doctors. These are names. See, I got multiple spellings of Malachite. I should really have that in there, but I'm running out. Yeah, this is worth. I don't really care about duplicates anymore. Merges and merging. But it is weird. There's people named Merges. That's a name. So yeah, you get that. So, and there's actually people named Scotland. I found out. So Scotland doesn't seem in here. Yeah, so you can these are the things I track, and oh yeah, there's all sorts of eye candy I forget about. So they're also telling me what I've been most busy doing. So I've been most busy in 2023 on Porterfield's, Linover, Spangler, Acks, excuse me, which is that's alternate spelling of my name in Pennsylvania for for about 200 years. And then unknown is, everybody's probably got unknown there. So
Okay.
I don't know if I answered the question or not.
No, I think you did.
Okay.
And I will close with one of the many compliments we have. And it's Bridget says, "Thanks, Marty and GRIVA. I've dabbled in or with WikiTree, but haven't given it enough time and effort. I appreciate Marty's enthusiasm and interest."
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We got other thank yous. Thank you for this interesting presentation. Interesting and lots to learn. Thank you. So we are excited. Thank you very much for this and for spending time with us and hanging in there through the technological hiccup.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to get a new PC soon.
It worked out perfectly. So
Okay.
thanks again. And thanks to everybody for attending. And we'll look to see you at our coming events.